naturally speaking, there are lots of people in society, both from the political standpoint and the sports standpoint, that have denied things and accused people of being liars when they attempted to expose the truth. But nothing with the magnitude of the destruction of what he did to the lives of some of these people and some of these families.
Yeah.
Now, Scott, it's interesting. You talked about the SCA promotions, and it looks like they'll be up first in the line of people who are going to come after Lance. How this would no doubt bankrupt him. Do we have any estimate of what his worth is, and will he be able to hang on to any of that worth after all this has gone through? Do we have any idea about the true worth of him?
Yeah, he's got about $120, $130 million of net worth, and not every single person's going to abandon him. He is desperately, secretly, unbeknownst to anybody, trying to settle this U.S. Postal Service thing. He's already offered him $5 million purportedly, and he's going to try to settle these cases because the biggest one will be the Postal Service one, because that could be as much as $90 to $100 million of exposure. But
wow.
I think he's going to have a tough time. I think when he came out, I think he just believed, oh, well, if I get back in the limelight, I'll start picking up some sponsors, and whatever money I lose, I'm going to get it all back, and eventually everyone's going to forgive me and realize I'm a great guy.
The interesting part of it is one that you already mentioned that I'd read, and I hadn't even thought about it like this until I read it, and then you mentioned it, and that was that the Australian government were apparently considering trying to recoup some of the appearance fees that they were part of paying him to show up at the tour of Australia, right? Now that's interesting when you've got foreign governments coming after an American citizen. Does that throw any weird legal ramifications into the works here?
Well, I think that the answer is yes, in the sense that where the jurisdiction's going to be and where they're going to sue will be interesting. They actually could sue them in the United States if they wanted to, depending on where the payments are made. But I can just tell you that when you see stuff like this and you see the impact, what is the world thinking of us? What is the world thinking of the kinds of people that we're fashioning as our leaders, as our moral and spiritual leaders? I mean, it is a tragedy, and that's why I really want to emphasize, I hope that people look at this as a launching pad to say, let's support what's good and not what's not. Let's try to figure out how we can get our leaders, how we can reward people for being good and honest and of high fiber, and not for just the person who wins the race and gets the girl.
Can I tell you what's really upset me, though, is that I'm a bicyclist. I love the sport. The last 2 years I've been out to Colorado for the U.S. Pro Cycling Challenge and stuff. I really love the sport. And in 1999, isn't it true, really, wouldn't you say, that there was, after the Festina crisis, that cycling was at a crossroads, and Lance at that point, as one of the big guys in the sport even then, had a chance to take it in a clean direction, and he didn't do that.
I agree. I mean, you look at the Italian Filippo Simeoni, who was telling him that they were saying he was doping, and Armstrong called him a liar, and Simeoni sued for defamation and actually lost. I mean, it's a horrific situation, and it's terrible because his impact on the world and his impact on cycling in specific has so much more profound waves than just one guy. And that's the angering thing about this. You're a cyclist and you feel like you're going to be infected as a result of something you had nothing to do with. And that's the tragedy of this entire situation.
Scott Major is with us. He's an attorney, author, former professional athlete. We're talking a little bit for a few more minutes about Lance Armstrong and really the legal side of the fallout from all of that.
Yeah, Scott, here's one, too. Part of the reason that he won those earlier lawsuits against him, and he was able to do it, wasn't he able to go back and say, look, I passed 60 tests in a row that say I'm not doping? Wasn't he able to pass?
The answer is yes, but what a lot of people don't know is there were a lot of tests that were what they call non-negative, where they could have publicized those, and he did an excellent job of just totally burying them through anything from donations to critical things or other things. Like in 1998, he had there were 40 positives, back then, and nobody brought it to the forefront. And the people who did, as you recall, got squashed and got humiliated and defamed because he leveraged his power.
Finally, Scott, before we let you go, I thought this was interesting. You mentioned that the Sunday Times is going to come after him in all likelihood as well. David Walsh was one of the two or three journalists who stayed on the case here when being shouted down. And Paul Kimmage is the name of the other guy, and I don't know if you saw this story, but he wrote a story yesterday in The Guardian, and it ended like this, Scott. It said, Kimmage says that in the autumn of 1993, Linda Mooneyham, who is the mother of Lance Armstrong, Lance had just become the world champion. She travelled from her home in Texas for advice from the LeMonds, from Greg LeMond. She said, what does he do now, she asked. What does he do with his money? Well, let him find an agent, a good one with an attorney, LeMond replied, and one word of advice, just be his mum. They sat on the porch for a while, then moved inside to the kitchen. Linda had something else on her mind. Quote, how do I make him less of an, and it's a word that starts with A and ends with hole, and I can't say it on the radio, he doesn't care about anyone. Well, LeMond replied, I can't help you there. And really, I think that's a story that's related at the end of this article, Scott, but it kind of goes to the heart of what's happened here, doesn't it, really, about Lance himself?
It does, and the personality. And again, I'd leave you with the thought that I think that this just keeps pointing back to, when we get done talking about what he's done bad, let's talk about how we fashion, environments that promote people that are good. I mean, you don't hear anything bad about Roger Federer. He's a role model. Yeah. You want to have people that are out there that we believe in and we think and that are honest and are rewarded for being honest and rewarded for having character.
Hey, thanks, Scott. We appreciate you coming on the program. The fallout will continue, that's for sure, and we appreciate your time.
Hey, anytime, pal. Thanks for the show.
Thanks a lot. Scott Major with us there for a few minutes. Attorney, author, former professional.